14th of December 1921 to the 7th of January 1922, members of Dáil Éireann held a series of private and public sessions to debate the Articles of Agreement for a treaty between Great Britain and Ireland that had been signed in London by representatives of the Dáil and the British government. These debates would prove acrimonious and cause deep divisions between supporters and opponents of the treaty. Those divisions would divide a nation and lead to civil war that would shape Ireland's political landscape for a century. To mark the century of this historic event, Cork City Council has collaborated with St. Peter's to fund and produce this performance of an adaptation of the debates that was performed by students of the Acting for Stage and Screen course in Coláiste Stefan Neva, adapted by Cork historian Jerry White and directed by John Whitty of Coláiste Stefan Neva. This performance covers some of the key moments of the debates and the words of the participants, including a number of Cork TDs. It also encompasses the principles and values which Cork City Council seeks to enshrine as part of a centenary commemoration programme, which aims to reaffirm the importance of Dáil Éireann and acknowledge that the ideals and principles and aspirations of the men and women who shaped the course of Irish history and played their part by the people of Cork in the events that took place over 100 years ago. I also wish to acknowledge the support provided by Cork City Council's Decade of Centenaries commemoration programme by the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. That support has enabled the Council to fund this performance and other events of our centenary programme.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jerry Weiss, and on behalf of Cork City Council, the management of St. Peter's, and the Principal and Board of Management of Coláiste Stefan Neva, I'd like to welcome you all to this historic building for tonight's performance. Exactly 100 years ago, the people of Ireland watched and waited as over 120 Sinn Féin TDs from all over Ireland gathered in Dublin to debate the text and terms of the Anglo-Irish Treaty. To mark the centenary of that event, the Acting for Stage and Screen course of Coláiste Stefan Neva are presenting a dramatisation of the debate. So tonight, I invite you all to sit down, relax, and take a journey back in time 100 years and watch as close friends gradually became bitter enemies, as they debated a document that would shape the destiny of the Irish nation. Enjoy the show.
Is calling on the souls of this land. The fate of our nation is lying in their
Wednesday, the 14th of December, 1921. Dáil Éireann convened in the Council Chamber, University College, Dublin, to debate the text of the Anglo-Irish Treaty. This session would focus on whether those who had signed the treaty had ignored their instructions, and if subsequent meeting would be held in public or private. The debate was opened by President Eamon de Valera. President de Valera.
The question we have to decide is one which ought to be decided on its merits. I think, therefore, it would be wise to give a short narrative of the circumstances under which the plenipotentiaries were appointed, and to explain the terms of reference. We selected 3 members of the Cabinet, with 2 others, and it was obvious. If these plenipotentiaries were to be in a position to do the work given to them, they should have full powers of negotiation. At the 2 meetings of the Dáil at which they were appointed, I made it quite clear that my own point of view and the point of view of the Cabinet is that these plenipotentiaries should have full plenary powers to negotiate. The understanding that when they're appointed, the Cabinet would decide its policy. Whatever arrangement they arrived at would have to be submitted to the Dáil for ratification. But the question of committing the country completely without ratification by the Dáil was, of course, out of the question.
Eamon de Valera then read the instructions that had been given by those who had signed the treaty.
Number 1. The plenipotentiaries have full powers, as defined in their credentials. Number 2. It is understood before decisions are finally reached on the main question that a dispatch notifying the intention to make these decisions will be sent to the members of Cabinet in Dublin, and that a reply will be awaited by the plenipotentiaries before final decision is made. Number 3. It is also understood that the complete text of the draft treaty about to be signed will be similarly submitted to Dublin, and a reply awaited. Number 4. In case of a break, the text of the final proposals from our side will be similarly submitted. And number 5. It is understood the Cabinet in Dublin will be kept regularly informed of the progress of the negotiations. Now, that was all, with the exception of paragraph 3. My idea was that when the plenipotentiaries had arrived at an agreement on the treaty, that document in its full text would be translated. Because in the case of the treaty, even verbal, the exact form of words is of tremendous importance.
Arthur Griffith, the chairman of the Irish delegation, spoke next. Deputy Griffith.
I wish to say, as regards any suggestion that the plenipotentiaries had exceeded their instructions, that I, as chairman of the delegation, immediately controvert it.
President de Valera.
The treaty was signed in the small hours of the morning, after certain alterations had been made. And we never saw those alterations. Now, had I seen it, I would have used any of them to try and secure unanimity in the matter. But the chance was lost by the fact that instead of sending the final draft to us and taking time over it so the matters could be fully considered, it was rushed
Deputy Collins.
I must again protest against my calling for action. When you do not call us unfair, except from this point of view. If one document has to be read, the original document, which was a prior document, should have been read first.
Is that kind of original credentials?
Yes.
Was that all presented?
We were never instructed to present it.
I'm asking.
May I ask, do I be no speak about interruption?
This is an order.
I only ask, do I be no speak about interruption? That is a small class.
Hear, hear.
The original credentials were presented, and they read, in virtue of the authority vested in me by Dáil Éireann, I hereby appoint Arthur Griffith, TD, Minister for Foreign Affairs Chairman, Michael Collins, TD, Minister for Finance, Robert C. Barton, TD, Minister for Economic Affairs, Edmund J. Duggan, TD, and George Gavin Duffy, TD, as envoys plenipotentiaries from the elected government of the Republic of Ireland, to negotiate and conclude on behalf of Ireland. With the representatives of His Britannic Majesty George V, a treaty or treaties signed of settlement and association between Ireland and the community of nations known as the British Commonwealth. In witness hereof, I hereunder subscribe my name as President signed, Éireann de Réir. That was sealed with the official seal of Dáil Éireann and dated the 7th day of October 1921. Now, we do not agree to the second document being read, but the prior documents should have been read first. Now, I've not said I regard anything. I know we call a traitor. If I am a traitor, let Irish people decide it or not. If there are any men who act towards me as a traitor, I'm willing to meet anywhere, anytime, never say that the document was agreed to by the signatories and recommended to the Dáil for acceptance. If the Dáil does not accept it, I, as one of the signatories, will be relieved of all responsibility for myself. But I'm bound to recommend this over my signature.
President De Valera.
The main point is settled. And by the admission of the delegates themselves, it would be ridiculous to think that we could send 5 men to complete a treaty without the right of ratification by this assembly. That is the only thing that matters. Therefore, it is agreed that this treaty is simply an agreement, and it is not binding until the Dáil ratifies it.
The first public session of the treaty debate ended in an agreement that discussions about the origins of the treaty would be held in private sessions, but discussions of the treaty itself would take place in public sessions. During the private sessions that took place over the next 2 days, Eamon de Valera introduced an alternative to the treaty, referred to as Document Number 2. This would provide Ireland with full independence, and its relationship with Britain would be something called external association. However, this alternative failed to win the approval of the deputies. On Monday, the 19th of December, the Dáil resumed its public sessions. After Eamon de Valera stated that Document Number 2 had been withdrawn and was not for public consumption, Arthur Griffith formally proposed acceptance of the treaty. Deputy Griffith.
I move the motion standing in my name, that Dáil Éireann approves of the treaty between Great Britain and Ireland, as signed in London on December 6th, 1921. Nearly 3 months ago, Dáil Éireann appointed plenipotentiaries to go to London and to treat with the British government and to make a bargain with them. Well, we have made a bargain and we have brought it back. We were sent there to reconcile our aspirations with the community of nations known as the British Commonwealth. And that task which was placed on our shoulders was as hard as any ever placed on the shoulders of men. But we have done it. I signed that treaty, not as the ideal thing, but fully believing, as I believe now, it is a treaty honourable to Ireland that safeguards the vital interests of Ireland. And now, by that treaty I stand, and every man here with a scrap of honour who signed it will stand. That it is for the Irish people, who are our masters, not our servants, as some here believe. It is for the Irish people to decide whether this treaty is good enough. I have heard here some suggestions that the man who won the war, Michael Collider, compromised Ireland's rights. Well, in the talks leading up to the negotiations, not once was the request made for the recognition of the Irish Republic, because we knew if it had been made, it would have been refused. We were sent there to reconcile these two positions. And I hold we have done it. Many criticisms, I am sure, will be levelled against this treaty. One, in particular, is the question of the oath. Now, I encourage you all to look into this oath, to read it, not to misunderstand it, or to misrepresent it. It is an oath of allegiance to the Constitution of the Free State of Ireland, and merely of faithfulness to King George V, in a capacity as head, by virtue of a common citizenship between Ireland and the nations of the Commonwealth. That, I believe, is an oath that any Irishman could make with honour.
President De Valera.
We were elected by the Irish people. And did the Irish people think we were liars when we said that we meant to uphold the Republic, which was ratified by the vote of the people in the elections 3 years ago, and which was further ratified, expressly ratified by the vote of the people in the elections last May? I am against this treaty because it does not reconcile Irish national aspirations with associations with British government. I'm against this treaty, and not because I'm a man of war, but a man of peace. I am against this treaty because it will not end the centuries of conflict between the two nations of Great Britain and Ireland. That's ridiculous. We went out to effect such reconciliation, and you have brought back the thing to even reconcile our own people, much less reconcile Britain and Ireland.
That's outrageous, President.
I'm asking you once more to reject this treaty for two main reasons. It is absolutely inconsistent with our position. It gives away Irish independence. It brings us into the British Empire. It acknowledges the head of the British Empire. And not merely as the head of an association, but as the direct monarch of Ireland and as the source of executive authority in Ireland.
In another contribution recommending acceptance of the treaty, Michael Collins introduced what became known as his stepping stones to the Republic's theory. Deputy Collins.
I do not recommend the treaty for more than it is. Equally, I do not recommend it for less than it is.
Make up your mind.
In my opinion, it gives us freedom. Not the ultimate freedom that all nations desire to develop to, but the freedom to achieve it. Now, I've explained something to what the treaty is. I also want to explain to you, as one of the signatories, of what I consider the rejection of it means. It has been said that the alternative document does not mean more. Perhaps it does, perhaps it does not. I, as an individual, do not, now no more than ever, shirk war. The treaty was signed by me not because they had the alternative of immediate war. I signed it because I would not be one of those to commit the Irish people to war, without the Irish people committing themselves to war. If my constituents send me to represent them in war, I will do my very best to represent them in war.
During that debate, Kevin O'Higgins also spoke in favour of the treaty. Deputy O'Higgins.
I rise in support of the motion that the Treaty of Peace with Britain, signed by our plenipotentiaries in London and brought before us today, be approved by Undog. So I would like to say to those of you who I find myself at variance with, and to that brave-hearted man that leads them, how bitterly I do feel this separation. Now on the outset I'd like to make it clear that, in my opinion, this is not a question that centres around whether or not these proposals should have been signed. We selected five men of sound judgment and conspicuous ability. Men whose worth has been tested over 4 strenuous years. Men who knew our present situation and our future prospects. These men knew where we were strong, and these were men who knew where we were not strong. We sent these men to London trusting them, and they brought back to us a document which they believe represents the utmost this country can get, short of the resumption of war against fearful odds. A war which would be only one more test of endurance to a people who've endured so gallantly. A war which there would be no question of a military victory. They signed, and they are here to answer you and to answer the country for signing. They decided they'd be cowards if they did not sign. It's not a question of whether these proposals should or should not have been signed. And it's not a question of a keen desire for wanting better terms. It's a question of whether you will accept or reject the proposals which these men have brought back for ratification. We would all desire better terms. And what we have to decide now is, are we going to take our chances in securing them? If we reject these, a sovereign, independent republic was our claim. And I think we can all admit that men who decide to fight would be fools for fighting for less. But the fact remains we were willing to negotiate, and that implied we had something to give away. These men were well qualified to judge our current situation and our prospects. and we will do well to scrutinise carefully this document they have produced. And not so much in relation to the inscriptions of our battle standards, but in relation to our prospects of achieving more.
Hear, hear.
The extracts from the speeches you have just heard represent the main arguments for and against acceptance of the treaty that were made in the first 2 public sessions. 8 more public sessions would be held, during which the debate would become more bitter and personal as both sides strived to secure a majority of votes. During the 3rd public session, held on Tuesday, the 20th of December, among those who spoke was Kathleen O'Callaghan, the widow of Michael O'Callaghan, a former Sinn Féin mayor of Limerick, who was killed by Black and Tans. Deputy O'Callaghan.
I rise to support the motion of our residents for the rejection of these articles of agreement. Unless anybody should afterwards question my right to stand here and criticise and condemn this treaty, I want it to be understood here and now. I have the clearest right in the world. I paid a big price for that treaty and for my right to stand here. I challenge any deputy in this Dáil to deny my husband's devotion to the Republic, a devotion he sealed with his blood. I've been told to. I have a duty to my constituents. They, I am told, would vote for this treaty.
Hear, hear.
I ought to respect their wishes. While my political views have always been known in Limerick, and the people of Limerick who elected me deputy of this Dáil 2 months after my husband's murder, I know that because of that murder, I will stand by my convictions and my oath to the Irish Republic. There's a 3rd point I want to clear up. When it was found that the women deputies on Dáil were not open to canvass, the matter was dismissed. The remark, oh, naturally, these women are very bitter. Well, now, I protest against that. No woman in this Dáil is going to give her vote merely because she is warped by a deep personal loss. The women of Ireland so far have not appeared much on the political stage. That does not mean they have no deep convictions about Ireland's status and freedom. It was the mother of Padraig and Willie Pearson who made them who they were. The sister of Terence Maxwini, who influenced her brother and is now carrying on his life's work. The widow of Tom Clark, who was born and bred in the Finian household of her uncle John Daly of Limerick. These are the women of Ireland, and they are women of character. They will vote for principle, not for expediency.
On the following day, Deputy Mary McSweeney, the sister of Terence McSweeney, the Lord Mayor of Cork and Officer Commanding Cork, No. 1 Brigade of the IRA, who died in Brixton Prison on the 25th of October 1920, after 74 days on hunger strike, spoke against the treaty. Deputy McSweeney.
I rise to speak with the deepest and fullest sense of my responsibility, not only to those who send me here, but to the whole Irish nation. Because I stand here for the will of the people. And the will of the people of Ireland is for their freedom, which this so-called treaty does not give them. The will of the people was expressed in December of 1918, and the will of the people was expressed in the manifesto which sent every one of you here. So if this country should be so false to itself as to adopt this so-called treaty, I've already told some of the ministers on the other side of the house that I will be their first rebel under their so-called free state, that they will have the pleasure or the pain, as it pleases them, of imprisoning me as one of their first and most deliberate and irreconcilable rebels. And although I have been a teacher all my life, and I've longed and prayed for the day when the Irish government would take over the education of this country, I tell them here and now, I would never teach in a school under their control. I would still take school, and I would teach that the adoption of that treaty, if it should be adopted by the Dáil, by the people of the country, is the greatest act of treachery in history. And you, young men of the Irish Republican Army, where are you to be? What will you do with the Republic? What will you do with the IRA that you are so proud of? Yes, there will be an end to your IRA in this treaty. How do you think the people will take that? And you have told us that it is between the acceptance of that document and war. Well, if it were, with every deep sense of responsibility, I say that let us take war! I am speaking as a woman who realizes as only a woman can the evils of war, the sufferings of war. And you say now if it were war, I would take it. Gladly and deeply, not flippantly, but gladly. Because I realize that there are evils far worse than war. No physical victory can compensate for a spiritual surrender. I know the women of Ireland, and I know what they will say to the men who want to surrender.
We don't.
And therefore I beg of you, take the decision to throw out the treaty. Register your votes against it and do not commit the one unforgivable crime that has ever been committed by the representatives of the people of Ireland.
During that same session, Richard Mulcahy, the Chief of Staff of the IRA, spoke in support of the treaty. Deputy Mulcahy.
None of us want the crown. None of us want the representative of the crown here. And none of us want our harbours occupied by enemy force. And none of us want what is said here to be a partition. And we want no argument against any of these things. But what we want is an alternative. What we want is for the road to open up to us and show us how we can avoid this treaty. I see no alternative than the acceptance of this treaty. I see no solid spot of ground in which the Irish people can lay their political feet upon other than this treaty. We're told the alternative is war, and I don't know whether it is or not. But I'm not afraid of the influence of the king.
You should be.
And I'm not afraid of the influence of the king exerted through his supposed corrupt courts here. Because if we have control, that gives us full control over legislation, over order, over peace, over the whole internal life and resources of our country. And if we have executive responsibility to that parliament, I don't see the way, or in what way, the king or his representatives can interfere with them. Now, as regards to our ports, we are not in a position of force, either military or otherwise, to drive the enemy from our ports. We've not been able to drive the enemy from anything but a good-sized police barracks. We have not that power. Now, if there are certain disabilities in regards to ourselves with this particular treaty, whether we will endeavour to outgrow them with our own resources, or take our chances in war, and not with anything like adequate military force, might I add, but with very small force, sufficient enough to make our country withstand force for years, but certainly not to win a war of even internal liberation. And that, my friends, is one outstanding aspect of the situation at hand. Are we seriously going to choose the next onward march of our nation with the weapons that will leave us dead in our country? Or are we going to grow to manhood in friendliness and with some chance of avoiding that polarisation of mind and polarisation of antagonisms which the English people are forced into at this present time?
By now, details of the treaty debates were appearing in the Irish newspapers and sparking debates in all parts of Ireland, including here in Cork.
So, ladies, what do you think of this treaty stuff going on in Dublin?
I really haven't a clue. All this all very old and the crown. Sure, did my Johnny British Army and take an oath in 1914 to fight for the bloody crown. Lost the bit was like the France he did during the big push in 1916. And to like get a few shillings off the government every when he's in France. And we still get their pension because it's poor. Hence no food on the table. So why don't we go for lunch to get a bit of freedom? I'd rather that with friends than with enemies.
Your Johnny lost him in his leg, did he? Well, Katie, my dear, my cousin Paddy lost his life. Captured in Northern Avenue last April and executed up in the barracks by the same British Army that your Johnny fought with. Now, he was a true Irishman, fighting with the IRA for an independent Irish Republic.
Hold on now a minute. Are you saying my Johnny isn't a true Irishman? How dare ya? As for an independent Irish Republic? Take a look around you, Maggie. Our city is in ruins. Does it look like we're winning that battle?
Well, instead of fighting for the freedom of other small nations, maybe all those Irishmen who fought in the war would have been better off staying here at home, fighting for the freedom of this small nation. We need rid of the British.
Will you calm down? We've been friends for years. Let's not fall out of all that squabbling about a treaty that's going on in Dublin. We've had the Great War, the Spanish flu, and now this one. There has been enough suffering, and too many people have died. The men and women we elected to the door, no matter what side they are on, are good, honourable people.
And isn't that Michael Collins gorgeous?
Sure, no, but being gorgeous if he's prepared to go crawling to the king with his bloody oath of allegiance.
Seriously, will you stop? It's almost Christmas. We're not going to let any argument about a treaty break up our friendship. I don't mind if we have a republic or a free state. I just want our poor country to have peace, so we can rebuild our city, put food on the table, and educate our children. There were good people in the door, and they will all make the right decision in the end. No, there's a crowd of busybodies listening to our conversation. So come on, let's be on the way.
Alright, but you remember now, Maggie, my Johnny is a true Irishman.
Not if you wore khaki and took the king's shilling. The only true Irishmen are fighting the British.
Ah, come on now, ladies. Where's the Christmas spirit? Let's go check out the price of turkeys and see if we can find a copy of the poor Polly.
As the people of Ireland debated the treaty, the Dáil adjourned for Christmas on the 22nd of December. The debate resumed on Tuesday, the 3rd of January 1922, and during that session, Countess Markievicz argued against accepting the treaty. Deputy Markievicz.
I rise today to oppose with all the force of my will, to oppose with all the force of my whole existence. This so-called treaty, this home rule bill covered over with the sugars of treaty. My reasons against are twofold. First, I stand true to my principles as a Republican, and to my principles as one pledged to the teeth for freedom for Ireland. I stand on that first and foremost. I stand too on the common sense of the treaty, which I say does not mean what it professes to mean. Now, I, being an honourable woman, would sooner die than give a declaration of fidelity to King George of the British Empire. Now, if we pledge ourselves this oath, we pledge our allegiance to this thing, whether you call it a Commonwealth of Nations or a British Empire that is treading down on the people of India and Egypt. And in Ireland, this treaty, as they call it, is to be ratified by a Home Rule Bill. Binds us to stand by and enter no protest while England crushes India and Egypt. And mind you, England wants peace in Ireland. She wants to turn the Republican Army into a Free State Army. And mind, the army is centred in King, or the representative of the King. The army is to hold itself faithful to the Commonwealth of Nations, while the Commonwealth sends its black and tans over to India. Now, I would make a treaty with England once Ireland was free, and I would stand with President de Valera in that if Ireland was free, I would welcome the King of England over here and visit. But while Ireland is not free, I remain a rebel, unconverted and unconvertible. There is no word strong enough for it, because I am pledged as a rebel, an unconvertible rebel, because I am pledged to one thing, a free and independent republic.
During that same session, J.J. Walsh, one of the 4 TDs for the constituency of Cork City, spoke in support of the treaty. Deputy Walsh.
Since my advent into the political arena, understood that we were here to express the voice of the people, that we were here to typify the consent of the governed, that we were here to speak for the majority of the people. Now, my friends, I have, unlike other people, made it my business to visit my constituency in the interval since the adjournment over Christmas. The city of Cork has played a not unimportant part in the events of the last 4 or 5 years. And though I have not counted heads, nor have I taken a vote of the people, I will honestly, as a plain, honest man, say that I feel that 9 out of every 10 people in Cork City are in favour of the ratification of I have met prominent public men in my constituency, and they assure me that they themselves have not met one single human being in Cork City opposed to the treaty. Now, I am stating what is an honest, straight fact. Some of you assume that if you voted, or if you should vote for the treaty, you are violating your own conscience. I don't know that you have any right to intrude your conscience on the question, on the lives and the liberties of your people. Your people have not asked you to take this oath, but they have asked you to ratify this treaty. We hear a lot about unity. The majority of the boards of the country have made it clear that, regardless of unity, this treaty must be ratified. I will venture to say that 95% of the people of this country who have had an opportunity of expressing themselves have definitely asserted that it is their view that this treaty meets with their requirements for the time being. It is not Southern Unionists who have asked you to support this treaty. The Sinn Féin clubs are not Southern Unionists. The county councils of the country are not Southern Unionists. The whole nation and all the public bodies of this country are not Southern Unionists, but they are as good Republicans. And you know, they see an opportunity of expressing themselves on matters which mean the life and death of a nation.
Among those who spoke at after J.J. Walsh was Donal Óg O'Callaghan, the Lord Mayor of Cork and another deputy for Cork City. Deputy O'Callaghan.
Like most members of this Dáil, I am thoroughly weary of those speeches and appeals made on ratification and approval of this treaty. And I think, and so are the people of this country. For my part, I am voting against this treaty. I cannot in conscience do anything else. Now, with regard to the result of that, and regards to whom the people that I represent, I've had for some time the honour to represent the people of Cork in more than one capacity. I represent them as the Lord Mayor of Cork and the Chairman of their County Council, and I represent them here. The people of Cork did not elect me to any of these positions because of any ability of mine, real or supposed, because of any statesmanship of mine, or because of any political ability. You're here. They elected me simply and solely because I believe in the absolute freedom for Ireland. And that my views on that question are well known and established. If the people of Cork have yet changed their minds, indeed I maintain the people of Cork have not changed their minds. I also want to make clear that some of us in this Dáil have visualised an independent Ireland. And what I learned today, which I have to say with considerable surprise, from one of my colleagues on the representation of Cork, which he never did, I can only say...
That is not a correct interpretation of my statement. Come on, David.
Very well. I withdraw it. For the rest, I regret very much in which the public boards and other institutions throughout the country have been divided on this question. And if there should be a division in this House, in itself would be regrettable. There was a hope that it would have ended there, and that division would not be forced in the country. But the country has been lined up for and against. I will close by regretting the strained feelings that have arisen in this House, and hopefully, when a vote be taken here, if a vote be taken here, and if my suggestion for plebiscite be not accepted, then at least the strained feelings of bitterness and animosity that have arisen in this House, where there want to be such a friendship, will end.
Indeed, well said.
During the 7th public session held on Wednesday, the 4th of January 1922, Margaret Pearse, whose two sons, Padraig and Willie, were executed after the 1916 Rising, urged the Dáil to reject the treaty. Deputy Pearse.
I rise to support the motion of our President for the rejection of this treaty. My reasons for doing so are various, but like first, I would like to explain them today. It's on my son's account. It has been said here on several occasions that Padraig Pearse would have accepted this treaty. I deny it. As his mother, I deny it. And at his account, I will not accept it. Neither would his brother Willie accept it. Because he was part and parcel of him. I am proud to say here today that Padraig Pearse was a follower and a disciple, a true disciple of Tom Clarence. Therefore, he could not have accepted a treaty like this. Some members here today may remember what Padraig Pearse said in the early autumn of 1916. He said it when he was inspecting the volunteers of Vinegar Hill. He told them there that day, "We, the volunteers, are not voting for half of Ireland, not to give the British garrison control of Ireland. No, we are here for the whole of Ireland." Therefore, Padraig Pearse could not have accepted a treaty like this. With only 2/3 of its country in it. In the name of God, I will ask the men here today that accuse Padraig
mentioned about rattling the bones of the dead. I only wish I could recall them. Remember, the day will come soon. Free state or otherwise, I hope. When those bones shall be lifted as if they were the bones of saints, and we won't let them rattle. No, but we will hold what they upheld. And I feel that I and others have a right to speak in the name of their dead.
Yeah.
During the same session, Deputy Owen O'Duffy spoke in favour of acceptance. Deputy O'Duffy.
There are a number of things in this treaty which we do not like. But we must understand that liberty in every country is restricted by treaties and mutual understandings in relation to its neighbours. I think there is not a small nation in this world that has taken so much by physical force without any outside support as Ireland have. Through the success of our arms and our methods of warfare, it has been possible for us to negotiate a truce and later on a treaty. On the ratification of this treaty, Ireland passes what was known all over the world as a domestic question to a position of sovereign status in the League of Nations. We may assume that the hustle for freedom is only beginning. We have now our destiny in our own hands. And if we do not secure, then it is our own fault. I think we will secure our freedom. I prefer to trust the Irish people. Let us in God's name go ahead and build this Irish nation. Now, I might be asked, and I probably will be asked, what of this army if this treaty is ratified? We are not bound by this treaty to have an army. It says we may. But let me say this. If we are to have an Irish volunteer army, it will be model to the world in courage and in discipline.
Final debate and the vote on the treaty was held on Saturday, the 7th of January, 1922. That session saw a number of deputies who hadn't yet spoken express their views. Among those who spoke was Harry Boland, a close friend of Michael Collins. Deputy Harry Boland.
I rise to speak against this treaty because, in my opinion, it denies a recognition of our Irish nation. I object on the ground of principle, and my chief objection is that I am asked to surrender my title as Irishman and to embrace the title of West Britain.
We're not.
I object because this treaty denies the sovereignty of the Irish nation, and I stand by the principle I have always held, that the Irish people are by right a free people. I object because this treaty is the very negation of all that for which we have fought. This is the first time in the history of our nation that a body of representative Irishmen have ever suggested that the sovereignty of this nation can be signed away. We went before the people of Ireland on a clear-cut, definite issue. We told them that if elected in 1918, we would set up in Dublin, the capital of the Irish nation, a parliament that we could select for our political ideals, and a republic. And we said that if elected, we would reaffirm the independence of Ireland and seek international recognition for that. Now, we secured that mandate because we put, for the first time before the people of Ireland, a definite issue. We promised them that if elected, we would deny the right and combat the will of England in this country. And after 4 hard years, we finally succeeded. And we brought Ireland even to the proud position she occupied on the 5th of December last. I say that the tragedy of all this is that while the men who favor this treaty have adopted a defeatist attitude and pointed out the weakness of Ireland and asked, how could we stand against the mighty British Empire? I say that those men did not consider the weakness of that very empire. I respectfully suggest that this conference could even be called because England found it impossible to carry on her work in Ireland and to preserve and carry on her empire. Now, I'd like to ask a question of my friend on the opposite aisle. Is this, in your opinion, a final settlement of the question between England and Ireland?
It is not a final settlement.
It is not. If this is not a final settlement, we have lost the goodwill of the world. On the day we sign that treaty, with the mental reservation that it is not a final settlement, I have taken one oath to this republic, and I intend to keep it. This nation of ours has been preserved for 750 years, coming down in unbroken succession of great men who inspired us to carry on. Each and every one of us here is the heir of a great tradition. And that tradition was that Ireland had never surrendered, Ireland had never been beaten, and that Ireland can never be beaten!
When he spoke in favour of accepting the treaty during that session, Liam Hayes, the TD for the constituency of Limerick City and Limerick East, and a member of the East Limerick IRA Flying Column, presented his case in military terms. Deputy Hayes.
As a plain man, a soldier, who has no claim to be a politician, but is one who in the Irish Republican Army done his best.
Hear, hear.
I have a mandate from the Irish people to protect their rights and their liberties.
Hear, hear.
Which of our men, when taking fight against desperate odds, did not ask themselves, am I justified in sacrificing the lives of my men? Well, they were. They were justified because they had authority then to fight for the rights of his country.
Hear, hear.
We fought for Ireland's freedom. We fought to rid Ireland of the English army of occupation. And we fought to secure control of Irish people's destinies.
Hear, hear.
And now we're asked to resume war. By some who have never heard the bark of an angry rifle. And for what? Merely to alter a few words in the treaty. Words which do not vitally affect the national position of our country. This is rainbow chasing, and I, for one, will not vote to sacrifice the lives of my men. I am voting for this treaty.
Two TDs from the rural constituency of Mid-Cork also spoke during that session. Daniel Corkery argued against the treaty, while Sean Hales spoke in favour. Deputy Daniel Corkery.
I rise to vote against this treaty. I believe if I voted for this treaty, I would would be voting against the independence of my country. I'm not prepared to do that. I believe also that if we win this British Empire, we win there as a prop and hold up a rotten empire. We've heard enough here to an alternative to this treaty. Terrible and immediate war. But I have the honour of representing Mid Cork in this door. The people. I believe the first fire was attacked in Mid Cork. The people have been with us all the way up to the truce, and they've never flinched, but they often heard angry crack of the rifle and machine gun. The people down there do not want war, but they're not happy as other companies, so I'm not quite as shocked. I am against this treaty.
Deputy Hales.
One deputy. Let him have it.
I was not going to speak one word here in this public session. I spoke what I had to say in the private session. I don't retract one word from that, nor have I one word to add to it. I have travelled down this stormy road since 1916, and it is conviction that leads me to vote for this treaty. I know my friends and fellow soldiers on the other side are equally convinced, but I can feel no other way out at the present moment. I did not want to make a speech. I was not going to say a word in addition to what I had said in the private session, but lest, as my comrades here says, that someone might say that I had not the courage of my conviction. I now state publicly that I am going to vote for this treaty.
That final session also saw the Minister for Defence, Cathal Brugha, launch a verbal assault on Michael Collins.
Sit back down.
Now, my friends, there are some people who, from a few questions that they put, some of them they've written out for me, do not apparently understand the whole position at present. A deputy from Tipperary and Waterford, one of my own colleagues, has sent me in a question which I will read. In view of the fact that many members and several people are biased in favour of this proposed treaty, because the Minister of Finance is in favour of ratification, and in view of the fact that many of these people are of the opinion that Michael Collins, the leader of the Irish Army, it is of great importance that an authoritative statement be made. A, defining the real position that Michael Collins held in the Army, and B, telling what fights he's taken an active part in, provided this can be done without injustice to himself, or to bring danger to the country. Or can it even be authoritatively stated that he ever fired a shot at any enemy of Ireland? Is that in order? Now, that is a matter that I approach with great reluctance. And I may tell you, I would never have dealt with this. And this question never would have been asked, but for the statement made by the chairman of the delegation when he said that Michael Collins had won the war.
And you know he did, right, Samuel? Come on, Michael. You know he did.
And the war is won. And we are talking here. Very well. I will explain to you how that was done.
I'd like to buy it. So buy it for
Come on, Michael, tell me.
Are we discussing the treaty or are we discussing the Minister for Finance? I think we're discussing the treaty.
The Minister of Finance is like what I've got to say.
Anything we said about you, say it.
Well said. It is necessary for me to define Michael Collins' position in the Army. To use a word that he has on more than one occasion used, and that he's fond of using. He's merely a subordinate in the Department of Defence. Now, while the war was in progress,
could not praise too highly the work done by the headquarters staff. They worked conscientiously and patriotically without seeking any notoriety. With one exception. One member was specially selected by the public and the press to put him into a position of which he never held. He was made a romantic figure, a mystical character such as that person certainly is not. The gentleman I am referring to, of course, is Mr. Michael Collins.
The Irish people will judge you for that. See, everyone, now we understand the real reason for this opposition to a treaty.
During the war, on one or two occasions, people asked me why I did not stop this kind of thing. Here was a man being described as Commander-in-Chief of the Irish Army, and on another occasion, he was Field Marshal General. My reply was that Michael Collins could not be responsible for what the newspapermen said of him, and consequently, I never took any notice of these things, and would not have done so only for the statement made by the chairman of the delegation when he said that Michael Collins had won the war. And you
know what he did.
The chairman of the delegation thinks the war is won. So far as he can win it. For England.
Too late. Let him carry on now. The damage is done.
No damage is done.
Well, in any case, you all understand now.
We do not.
Well, what exactly am I going to say to you? That Michael Collins does not avoid the position of the army the newspapermen said he held. Now, if I were to accept this treaty, and if I did not do my best to have it defeated, I would, in my view, be committing national suicide. I would be breaking the tradition that has been handed down to us through the centuries. And we would be doing something that no generation ever thought of doing. Willfully, voluntarily, admitting ourselves to be British subjects and taking an oath of allegiance voluntarily to the English king.
Having proposed the motion before the vote was taken, Arthur Griffith closed the debate with one final argument in favour of accepting the treaty. Deputy Griffith.
There have been statements made in this assembly regarding the people of Ireland. The people of Ireland sent us here, and we have no right, no authority beyond what we derive from those people of Ireland. We have no right to speak unless it is to seek the will of the people of Ireland. And here I am told those people of Ireland elected us to get a republic. Well, they elected us in 1918 to be rid of the parliamentary party. And again they elected us in 1921 as a sign of defiance against the Black and Tans. They elected us not as doctoring Republicans, but as a people seeking freedom and independence. There has been much talk here of principles, of honor, and of virtue. Well, the principles I have stood for my entire life is that of Ireland for the Irish people.
Hear, hear.
And if I can get that with a republic, I will have a republic. But if I can get that with a monarchy, I would take a monarchy. But I will not sacrifice my country or its people for a form of government.
Hear, hear.
I do not care whether King George V or the symbols of the crown be an arm.
You should care.
So long as the people of Ireland are free
Hear,
to
hear.
shape their own destinies.
Well said, Arthur.
We have the means to do that by this treaty. We have not the means otherwise. It is the right of the Irish people to see this treaty come into effect.
Hear, hear.
And when it does come into effect, then, for the first time in 700 years, the Irish people will be able to wake up in a free and independent Ireland, an Ireland that is ready to take its place among the nations of Europe.
President De Valera.
Before you take the vote, I want to enter my last protest. That document will rise in judgment against the men who say there is only a shadow of difference.
Let the Irish nation judge us now and for future years.
Well said, Wycliffe.
We will take a vote now in the usual way by calling the roll. The vote is on the motion by the Minister for Foreign Affairs that Dáil Éireann approves of the treaty. The result of the poll is 64 for approval and 57 against. That is a majority of 7 in approval. The Dáil then adjourned at 8:50 p.m. When it reconvened at 11 o'clock a.m. on Monday, the 9th of January, Eamon De Valera tendered his resignation as President of the Irish Republic. President De Valera.
In view of the vote that was taken here on Saturday, which I had definitely to oppose, as one that was tending to subvert the Republic, which I was elected to my present position to defend and maintain, and as it appeared to me also to be a vote which would tend to subvert the independence of the country. I therefore wish to place my resignation in the hands of the Assembly and the members of Cabinet all go with my resignation.
The TDs opposed to the treaty then attempted to gain control of the situation by proposing Eamon De Valera as President of the Irish Republic. He was proposed by Kathleen Clark and seconded by Liam Mellows. Another bitter debate followed, and when the roll was called, 58 voted in favour of the motion and 60 against. Liam de Rochta of Cork abstained. When called upon to vote, he declared,
I refuse to plunge my country into fratricidal strife.
Arthur Griffith then paid tribute to Eamon De Valera.
Before matters proceed any further, I wish to say, I want all the members of this assembly to know, all the people of Ireland to know, that this vote was not one cast against President De Valera. It is a vote to uphold this treaty And there's scarcely a man I have met in my entire life whom I hold as much love and respect for as President De Valera. And it thoroughly saddens me to see him placed in the position he is now, as I am sure every person here wants him with us.
After other TDs spoke, the Dáil adjourned at 6:45 p.m. When it reconvened the following morning, on Tuesday, the 10th of January, members debated a motion proposed by Michael Collins and seconded by Sean McOwen that Arthur Griffith be elected president. More bitter words were spoken in the debate that followed, and just before the vote was taken, Eamon De Valera rose from his seat and declared,
as a protest against the election as President of the Irish Republic, of the Chairman of the delegation, who is bound by treaty conditions to set up a state which is to subvert the Republic, and who in the interim period, instead of using the office as it should be used, to support the Republic, will of necessity have to be taking action which will tend to its destruction. I, while this vote is being taken, as one, am going to leave the House.
After Eamon De Valera and his supporters left the Dáil, the deputies who remained elected Arthur Griffith as president. While the TDs on both sides contemplated their next move, news of the vote reached Cork.
I knew it. That shower up in Dublin after betraying the Republic. All of that fighting and dying for nothing. I slept a lot better for my defendants.
It was not all for nothing. The war is over. We have our own government, and the British, who you need so much, are leaving. What more do you want?
What more? I want what our Lord Mayors Thomas McCurtain and Terry McSweeney wanted. What De Valera wanted. What my family wanted. A united Irish Republic, not a bloody free state.
And how many mothers, sons do you want to die for your Irish Republic?
As many as it takes, preferably if they're dressed in black and tan.
Well, I want my children to live to a ripe old age. They will.
In an Irish Republic, Devon Mayor McSweeney will sort out those bloody free staters.
And when your colleagues will show them a team out here, Maggie and Kate, please, will ye calm down? We're all friends. Please relax here. It's not the end of the world.
Calm down, is it? Get that bloody traitor away from me, because it'll be a long time before I waste my time on her again.
Likewise, I would be seen dead someone who wants to see more fighting, more grieving mothers. Sure, and for what? We all know England will never give us a republic. Oh dear. Friends for over 20 years. Now it's come to this. If only that crowd in Dublin could agree on something. Anything. That could keep friends and neighbours together. Where there was once hope, now there is just sorrow. I pray to God things won't get any worse.
Unfortunately, things would get worse. In the weeks and months that followed, the divisions in the Republican movement over the treaty would harden. The treaty would also divide the entire nation, and on the 28th of June, 1922, these divisions would lead to the outbreak of Ireland's Civil War, one of the saddest chapters in our country's long history. That war would last for over 10 months and result in the deaths of around 1,200 people, including 5 of the men whose voices you heard earlier: Michael Collins, Arthur Griffith, Harry Boland, Cathal Brua, and Sean Hales. Another deputy, Kevin O'Higgins, would be shot dead in 1927. While Ireland would gradually recover from the Civil War and take its place among the nations of the world, the conflict inflicted deep physical and psychological wounds on much of the population. And sadly, for some, those wounds would remain unhealed for the rest of their lives.
A brutal